Hey people, John Vegan here from PhoneArena. You're watching our video comparison between the Samsung Galaxy Note LTE versus the Apple iPhone 4S. Both are available right now through AT&T. Different pricing, $300 for the Galaxy Note versus $200 starting price point for the Apple iPhone 4S. If you haven't seen the commercials yet for the Galaxy Note, you gotta take a look just because you kind of get a hint that they're trying to make fun of the Apple iPhone 4S, whether it be intentionally or not. But nevertheless, we'll find out which device is the one to go with. Without a doubt, the biggest differentiator between these two handsets are their sizes. On one hand, you have the Galaxy Note with its obnoxiously large size. It easily dwarfs the iPhone 4S in every way. It's a lot harder to hold with one hand just because of its girth, whereas the iPhone 4 is a lot easier to handle. It's form-fitting and comfortable. The iPhone 4S also has the better choice of materials. It feels like a solid, like a premium handset, whereas the Galaxy Note is an all-plastic handset. But nevertheless, it's just that large size of the Galaxy Note that makes it so appealing and intrigues people a lot. It's not every day you see a device having this large size, and ultimately that's what jumps out most about both devices. We've always appreciated the Retina display of the iPhone 4S. It's just a wonderful looking display on there, and it's easily one of the benchmarks. But the Galaxy Note is just able to stand out a lot more, mainly because of its size. It sports a 5.3-inch WXGA Super AMOLED panel, which is actually a resolution of 800 by 1280 pixels, versus the Retina display of the iPhone 4S. It's a 3.5-inch size, it's 960 by 640 resolution. It's an IPS panel. Of course, when you do the math, the iPhone 4S has the higher pixel density at 330 ppi versus 285 ppi on the Galaxy Note. But honestly, that does not matter. Whether you look at far away, very close, they both offer a lot of detail and sharp clarity. So very nice at that aspect. But when you combine all the factors of the Galaxy Note's display, its punchy looking colors, wide viewing angles, and it's just large size, it's easily the device that's going to get a lot more looks versus the iPhone 4S. With the Galaxy Note, it features capacitive Android buttons, so there is still a tendency of accidentally pressing them, but that's not a concern with the iPhone 4S and its tactile single home button. When it comes to front-facing cameras, the iPhone 4S has a paltry VGA front-facing camera, whereas the Galaxy Note has a higher count 2-megapixel one. Both handsets have very distinguishable and tactile dedicated power buttons, so we didn't have any problems at all with them. At the same time, we could say the same thing about their volume controls. They're very easy to feel out, and on top of that, they have really good clicky responses. With their respective connection ports, we're given the ability to charge the devices and also have data connectivity. On top of that, we could also get video out functionality, but you have to purchase separate adapters for that. Well, if there's one useful piece of gear that the Galaxy Note offers that the iPhone 4S lacks, it has to be the S Pen. It just brings some additional functionality to the large-size Galaxy Note. For starters, it's great for jotting down notes. There's also a recognition service there, so you could input text by just writing it down. And on top of that, it's pressure sensitive, so it registers various degrees of pressure. So for drawing, stuff like that, it's very useful. And overall, it's just a nice inclusion with the Galaxy Note. In the rear, both handsets feature 8-megapixel autofocus cameras and also a single LED flash, but it seems like the iPhone 4S is a little bit more photocentric just because it features a wide-angle f2.4 lens and backside illumination. Yet another thing that some people will appreciate with the Galaxy Note is that it offers a removable battery. It's a 2500 milliamp hour one in there, whereas the iPhone 4S, you can't take it out. On top of that, the iPhone 4S is limited to its internal storage. It's available in 16, 32, and 64 gigabyte capacities, while the Galaxy Note has 16 gigabytes of internal storage, but you could supplement that with its expandability with the microSD card slot. Yet again, we have another comparison here, pitting the iOS experience versus Android, and ultimately it's going to come down to which one you prefer. We've gone through it many times in previous comparisons, but we'll say it again. With the iOS experience of the iPhone 4S, it has a very simplified experience, very easy to maneuver around its interface, so it has a very low learning curve, whereas the TouchWiz interface running on top of Android 2.3 Gingerbread on the Galaxy Note, it has a little bit of complexity to it, but then again, it has a ton more personalization than what the iPhone 4S has to offer with its vast widgets. But when you go to the app panel, you can tell that they look very similar with their grid-like view. But ultimately, it's a case-by-case scenario as to which one is the better for you. Let's get it out of the way. Both handsets are very fast with their operations. The iPhone 4S features an 800 MHz dual-core Apple A5 processor with 512 MB of RAM versus the Samsung Galaxy Note. It has a 1.5 GHz dual-core Qualcomm Snapdragon processor with 1 GB of RAM. Now you could tell here, just navigating, very smooth with both devices, but you could tell even with a static wallpaper that the Galaxy Note doesn't quite have the same instantaneous response as the iPhone 4S, but nevertheless, they're both still very fluid with their movements. But with more processor-intensive tasks with the Galaxy Note, we do notice some sluggishness that kind of muddies up the experience. For example, if we set this live wallpaper here, we'll just quickly compare again the performance. And right away, you could tell with the graphically intensive live wallpaper, it does kind of bring some choppiness along with its movement. It's not terrible per se, but definitely noticeable versus the very fluid and consistent operation of the iPhone 4S. Surprisingly, the Galaxy Note redefines what it means to have a spacious on-screen keyboard because, as you could probably tell right off the bat here, very different in size. The iPhone 4S just seems like it's a lot more cramped versus the spacious nature of the Galaxy Note. Despite that, though, you could tell that the responses are identical, very quick and responsive in inputting text. Some people might be afraid about the cramped nature of the iPhone 4S, but it has one of the best predictive text and autocorrect features, so it's not a problem. And ultimately, both devices are phenomenal when it comes to typing up messages. We've always been fond of the web browsing experience on the iPhone 4S just because of its balanced approach and the Retina display being able to display even fine text with no problems at all. But if we zoom in here, we could tell with both handsets, seeing that they have such high resolutions, even fine text is very easy to read. But with the Galaxy Note overall, it just reestablishes what we expect with web browsing experience on our smartphones. First of all, it has 4G LTE connectivity for faster data speeds versus the HSPA Plus speed you get on AT&T with the iPhone 4S. Secondly, you have the benefits of flash support, so you get that desktop-like experience on the Note. And finally, it maintains the same level of fluidity and responsiveness found with the iPhone 4S. So with the Galaxy Note, all those factors combine to have one of the best experiences on any smartphone out there. So here are the respective music players. Now they look very similar to one another when you're playing them regularly, but with the iPhone 4S it still continues to amaze us just because of cover flow, because of that very spiffy looking 3D effects, which isn't prominent or found whatsoever with the Galaxy Note's music player. But as far as audio quality, both are very loud, but the iPhone 4S has a little bit of sharp tones to it, which can be a little bit irritating, while some screechy tones can be heard with the Galaxy Note. Simply by just looking at these two handsets right now, you could just see the huge size difference between the two, and ultimately it's the Samsung Galaxy Note that's the preferred choice for watching videos just because of the generous size display, and of course its Super AMOLED panel just has that nice luster to it that makes it very enjoyable to the eyes. Up top we have the shots taken by the 8 megapixel camera of the Samsung Galaxy Note, and the bottom of course being the iPhone 4S and its 8 megapixel camera. Now honestly, both are very stunning when it comes to taking photos. They exhibit a lot of good details, very sharp looking overall. But the biggest differentiator we have to say is just color reproduction, and it seems like the iPhone 4S is the more capable device in producing more neutral tones that are very realistic, whereas the Galaxy Nexus seems to be a little bit on the cooler side with a noticeably bluish hue to its shots. Indoors under low lighting conditions, both are almost close, some grayness and almost very little lighting, but the iPhone 4S again exhibits the better looking colors between the two. Likewise, we could say the same thing about their high-definition 1080p video recording. They're very similar in terms of overall quality, very sharp-looking again, good details on both, and more than acceptable. They also move the same frame rate, so very smooth overall, but the difference again is the color reproduction, with the iPhone 4S gaining more realistic tones versus the Galaxy Note. But the advantage of the Galaxy Note that it offers continuous autofocus, whereas the iPhone 4S only offers touch focus. Neither device actually impressed us in the calling quality department, just because with the Galaxy Note, its earpiece is rather weak, and with the iPhone 4S, there is a little bit of background noise. During our time testing out both handsets, we didn't experience any drop calls. If we had to simply assume which handset is going to offer the better battery life based on looks alone, some would probably think that the Galaxy Note would be inferior just because of its ginormous display on board with it. But actually, we're very impressed to find that the Galaxy Note having superior battery life over the iPhone 4S. In our usage, we managed to get 2 days of normal usage via HSPA Plus connectivity, while the iPhone 4S, we managed to get 1 day, but it requires nightly charges, and overall, it just seems like the Galaxy Note offers more longevity. Between these two smartphones, it's ultimately going to come down to size yet again, just because that's what's going to dictate which is going to be the preferred device for you. On one hand, you have the iPhone 4S. It's the more compact and form-fitting one, whereas the Galaxy Note LTE is just ungodly with its overall size. But if you could overlook that, it's surprisingly fresh because you don't really typically see a device of this caliber on the market. On top of that, the Galaxy Note is a very well-rounded device. It takes some nice-looking photos and videos. It offers better battery life than the iPhone 4S. You have all the unique functions of the S Pen, which is again something you don't necessarily find with most devices out there on the market. But beyond that, you have also like the displays. That's it's a 5.3-inch Super AMOLED display. It really shines equally as well as the Retina display in the iPhone 4S. Even though it might not offer the higher pixel density, we're still attracted to it just because of its punchy colors, great contrast, and wide viewing angles. And ultimately, it just comes down to which is going to have the wow factor. And right now, it seems like the Galaxy Note LTE, it has 4G LTE connectivity, a large display, the S Pen functions, better battery life, and it's the type of device that's going to cause people to question what it is. It's going to really capture the attention of people just because it's so very different out there from everything else. So if you'd like to learn more about each handset, either handset, you can check out our website, guys, PhoneArena.com. This is John V. As always, thanks for watching.